All right, welcome back to the Black Swamp Basketball Podcast presented by the Gherkin Companies. Joined this week by some basketball royalty, along with Dave Krause there to my far right, Tori Strock back with us, and I'm Lynn Grawl, and we have a great group of guests, Jim Arnzen, Jeanne Arnzen-Gulick, and Fran Voll with us this week. Some Delphos connections that Coach Krause hooked us up with, and can't thank him enough, and can't thank all of you enough for joining us this week.
Well, it's there's certain programs that just stand right out as being noted for their fine basketball, but I don't think there's many that have both boys and girls excellence as the Delphos program has over the years. So to have these three people representing the Blue Jay programs, it's really a special opportunity for us to learn more about the background.
Thanks for having us.
Coach, you sent us the info, and I printed it out. It's like 10 pages long.
It's unbelievable. I did a lot of homework on you three.
Boy,
I don't know where we want to start, but I think in my mind, the centerpiece to begin with is Coach Bob Arnzen. So if we wouldn't just start there, because you all have connections, why don't you? Fran, why don't you start first? Because we know the other two have the Arnzen name, so they were tax credits for him. So, talked about Fran, your relationship with Coach Arn.
Well, we were at the state tournament one year. It was before 1977, maybe 76, I don't know. But he and the principal at that time, Father Parker, asked me to be the girls' basketball coach, and I didn't really give that any thought particularly. I was pretty much wanting to know as much as I could from being around Bob Arnzen. He was a mentor to a whole lot of people. And but make a long story short, I said yes and followed his footsteps and used him as much as I could. And he was so helpful. And when a lot of teams or a lot of schools wanted to maybe cut the girls short, we were going in the other direction, to be perfectly honest about it. And besides that, we had a whole bunch of great kids, great players like Jeanne and the rest of the gang that we got started with. And I say started, was there, but this was a whole new plateau that we put into it.
So you had coached with Coach Arnzen for how many years prior to going to the girls program?
Just a couple, and then switched, over.
Okay. Well, son and daughter, why don't you give us your thoughts of Coach Arnzen, not Dad Arnzen, let's Coach Arnzen. Jim, you played for him, so right out of the horse's mouth there. Give us what your impressions and what your memories of Dad were.
Well, Dad had a unique natural gift for connecting to people, and that had to be the key to year after year being able to do what he did. And man, as long as I can remember, I'd be in the gym. Summer times, I'd be out at the Stadium Park where he's the recreation director. And I really believe he's one of them guys that could have coached any sport. He obviously knew the game of basketball very well, but it wasn't just the strategies. That was his ability to get people to maximize their ability, feel good about it. He'd get people to buy into team ball. And he was in a community that had already experienced success, and a lot of bloodlines that were there when he played. There's still same names that you see in the newspaper and the box scores. And if I had to pick out one quality he had, it was just his natural ability to make people feel good and connect to him.
Yeah, he had that ability for sure, and I have a lot of good memories and conversations with Coach over the years. Jeanne, give us your thoughts.
So when I grew up, all I wanted to be was a cheerleader because that's what girls could do. So I was an 8th grade cheerleader, not very good. And my freshman year was the first year that girls were going to have a state tournament. And so I had a big decision to make. Did I want to be a gymnast? Because when Dad's teams were practicing, there was a gymnastics team above, and I spent a lot of time in the gym playing up there in the gymnastics room. And of course, I wanted to be a cheerleader. And now we're starting basketball. And I remember being very upset trying to make that decision. And Dad encouraged me. He said, you know what? I'm afraid if you don't try basketball this year that you could get behind. And if you don't like it, you could always go back to cheerleading. So I decided I would try basketball. And that was Fran's first year of coaching basketball. And I remember our first practices were at the Annex, which was like a small gym. And we spent most of our practice trying to get 10 layups in a row. That was mostly our practice as freshmen. Wow. And we just kept kind of working at it. And Fran really had the motivation to keep us driven. And we had, again, like Jim said, a lot of family names. My teammates' dads had played. And so we were very much all encouraged to, continue to play. We had never played junior high ball. We had only been in the stands watching our brothers play. So like Sue Young Peter's brother played with Jim, and Deb Elwer's brother, Denny, had played, and Cork, Laura Grodhouse, her dad had played. So we were very encouraged by our parents to try it. And we really didn't know if we were going to be any good or not our freshman year.
Jeannie, did you shoot hoops in the driveway? And I know you had a hoop in the basement, if I read correctly, as well, that your dad had. But did you shoot around with your brothers at that time?
Oh yeah. So growing up, I was very much of a tomboy. So playing outside a lot, and in our basement we did have a little hoop. So we were always playing horse and seeing if we could do bank shots, and Jim would make us do trick shots, and so we just shot around and played a lot. And as Jim said, Dad ran the park. So we also were kind of messing around at the park. Again, no organized teams. The only sport that I had ever played prior was softball. And so that was really the only thing offered for, girls up through 9th grade at that time. Mm-hmm. So I probably shot a lot more than I ever thought, just kind of playing around, being in the gym, because St. John's is a K-12 building. So many days after school, I would just hang around in the gym waiting for practice to be over. So I'm sure I was shooting in the gym a lot and didn't really think of it as practice.
Who was the top shooter in the Arnzen family?
Oh, that's easy. That was me. That's easy. Easy one there.
Okay, I'll be honest. We would play outside, and when I was probably by my freshman year, Jim would give me a 9-0 lead outside, 9-0. And if I could get one hook shot up without being blocked, then it might be competition. So that would be kind of the discrepancy. He was a senior. I was a freshman. I wanted to get better. And we'd play one-on-one, and the score would have to be 9-0. I have 9 points. And once in a great while, I might get 2 hook shots up. Otherwise, he'd be blocking me, and there was no way I could ever win.
She'd get mad if I let up on her a little bit. She didn't like that. She could tell.
What I'd like to know, we've got plenty to talk about the three of you, your illustrious careers, but I'd like you to dig a little bit deeper and talk about Dad Arnzen's background, his upbringing, where's he from, and kind of the path he took to get him to Delphos St. John's.
Well, he grew up in Newport, Kentucky. Back then, a lot of the kids went across the river, went to St. X. He went there. Never played basketball. After high school, he worked some in his dad's tailor shop and played in a church league, and some Dayton alum recommended him to, I think Coach Tom Carter was the coach at Dayton then, and he had him come down, and he was on the team. And then probably the biggest break in basketball he got was an unfortunate injury. He had a slip disc, couldn't play basketball anymore, but Dayton had hired a new coach, Tom Blackburn, who took a liking to my dad and made him the team manager. And as we all know, the person who gets closest to the coach is the team manager. And they had a bond that was, lasted a lifetime. And back then, a lot of the Catholic high schools would hire graduates from the Catholic universities, and Delphos was looking for a coach teacher, and they called Coach Blackburn, and they asked if any players. He says, I don't have a player, but I got a manager you want to hire right now. So that's how he got connected at Delphos St. John's, and that became his home.
And you moved there. What year was the family transported to Allen County?
Dad was 20, probably 23 years old. That would have been 1951.
Okay.
When he moved there, and a few years later, he met my mom, who was from Ottoville, and then all these years later, a family of 5 and a bunch of grandkids.
Wow.
And he spent some time coaching football there too in the beginning.
Yeah, he was the first football coach. I believe it was 1955 or 56. Not sure the exact year, but they were really strict back then. Your coaches had to be teachers, and he was him and the band director were the only 2 male teachers in the high school. So he made it really clear to them that he would do it, but he was going to have to rely on some guys in town that knew about football. So he coached him the first year, and by the next year, they were able to free up a teaching spot, and they hired in a coach that had some background, and he assisted for a few years with that too.
Wow.
But yeah, we all kind of forgot about him being the first coach until they start winning state championships in football. Then he claimed it again.
Hey, Jeanne,
yeah.
is there anything, any blanks you want to fill in? Anything that Jim maybe left out about your dad's path to Delphos?
Well, interesting was when we were looking at through scrapbook little articles, some things that we may never have known was it looked like he might have hurt his back during the Kentucky game.
Huh.
Was it Jim? Was it Ralph Beard he was guarding?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
Trying to guard him. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of how he hurt himself. And like Jim said, he played in a church league, and he might have played his freshman year at St. X. And because I remember Dad saying one thing he learned about this was a coach never said his sophomore year, like, "Hey, why aren't you going to go out for basketball?" And he just no one approached him, and he just took up to bowling. His dad ran a bowling alley, and he did a lot of bowling instead. And like Jim said, then he was seen in some church league, and that's how we ended up in Dayton.
That's great.
Wow.
Wow. So we're entrenched in Delphos. The family comes along. Jim, you're the oldest. 1976. We're just going to get right into it. 76, really, really special year. That was your graduation year, and you guys had a pretty good team.
Yeah, we were really good, and every time I go back to any gathering at Delphos St. John's, they remind me just how good we were. We went undefeated, and our second last game of the year, we beat St. Mary's 88-53, and then 2 weeks later, we played them in the second game of the tournament, got beat. So yeah, that's we've got the most famous defeat probably in the history of Blue Jays. And Fran, you're smiling. You remember that well, don't you?
No, that was a tough loss, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we had a really good team, good memories, and every year at Delphos like that. But yeah, 76 is, I'm sure the current Blue Jays who are undefeated are reminded by their parents and grandparents of what can happen to an undefeated team. So maybe we have some reward for that.
Lessons learned. But there are some individual awards that came out of that year for you. Obviously, WBL, which is interesting. They were wasn't charter member of the WBL back in the day. Is that correct?
When we were in high school, we were Western Buckeye League. I think in the 60s they were independent. I'm not sure exactly what year it got in the WBL, but it was very competitive basketball league. And I know at that time, Delphos St. John's and Defiance High School had great games. It was
we had the Layman's on earlier this year, and that got brought up, the games with Delphos a lot. So
we knew they were great games.
Yeah, for sure. Again, my research says that you were, even still today, and I don't know how accurate this is, and maybe you wouldn't know this, but you're still third all time in scoring in school history. Would that be accurate?
No, that wouldn't be close to accurate. I wouldn't know exactly how many, but I had probably 700 or 800 points was all.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Then I'm not going to tell people who wrote that. Let's leave it in there.
Leave it. Yeah, I'll go with it.
Absolutely. So we leave let's move on to 79. Then there was a young Arnzen girl that graduated. Now, Fran, this is where you jump in, because now you're coaching this girl for what, 3 years, 4 years? So yeah, tell us about Jeanne Arnzen, the player.
Well, there's nobody else like Jeanne. She was a leader. She was a lot like her dad, and as Jim was, for sure. But she understood everything that was going on the court. And, when you've got players like that, and the other players pretty much were in that ballpark too, it made it for a pretty good situation that we had for 3 years. We went with just one loss.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable record you had there for a while.
Coach Voll, when you are just starting and you have someone like Jeanne who had never played basketball and she's a freshman, I mean, do you start with just ball hand? I know she talked about the 10 layups in a row, but do you start with ball handling? Do you start with shooting form? Where do you even begin with someone as raw as her?
Well, the biggest thing that her dad told me was coach them like boys and make sure that you follow all the fundamentals of the game. And it was obvious that a lot of the kids had a tough time passing and shooting, catching, and things of that nature. We spent a lot of time on that. And I always thought that if we can move our feet and if we could do those fundamentals of the game, we would probably be a pretty good team. And that for sure took place. And we spent, hours on it. And they spent a lot of time on it themselves. When a lot of kids were putting things down, the ball down, we became much like the boys had been. They formed their summer programs, and we weren't, as coach, that you couldn't be around them a lot of times. The rules were pretty stringent, but they made sure that they played at the annex or somewhere on a regular basis, and they improved a lot of what was going on with their interaction amongst themselves. And they were very strong mentality wise to make sure that we were good. And it was all those things that I think was a lot.
Coach Voll, when did you see the potential that Jeanne had? Was there a point in her career where you said, boy, she's really going to be a really good player for us?
Well, they were all good. And Jeanne's certainly one of the top, but you could see that this was going to be a heck of a unit. It's much like Jim's unit that he played with when they went undefeated in those years and the great success they had. It was easy to see that this group was not normal. This was a very special group. And they kind of all came along together. If one needed some help with something, you could see them continue to improve. Jeanne, you could see her continue to improve. And that was the interaction amongst them. And I think if I learned anything as a coach, there's a certain thing you have to turn over to the players. And that's part of it. How good do you want to be? I mean, that if I was a motivator, I had to motivate them to be as good as they could be. And that worked.
Did you feel like they had the makings of making state tournament runs like you did?
I don't know if we knew a whole lot about it, because when they were freshmen, they had a pretty good year. And they went down to the state tournament with Dick Young-Peter. And they wanted to see what the state tournament was all about. I don't even think I went. But I think they came back thinking, we can get here. We can do this. And as we went along, I knew we were going to be really very good. We shouldn't have lost that one game.
Who was that too? That was the second year. That was her junior year, correct?
We lost to Springboro.
Okay.
Hey, Jeanne, you said you were torn between being a gymnast, cheerleader, basketball. When did you fall in love with basketball and say, this is what I want to do? Did it happen quickly or did it take time?
It happened quickly. Once we started practicing and I was playing with friends, and I think that was a big part, was some of us, like I swung both JV and varsity. And by the end, I was playing a lot of varsity, as did Deb Elwer, who was a classmate and a good friend still today. And Sue Young Peter was the only one of my class that was playing varsity only. And Corky Laura Olm was playing, Corky Grotehouse at the time. She was playing JV. We were all swinging. And by the end, we were playing more and more. But I really give credit to the upperclassmen who are very athletic and talented and really good leaders. They were so unselfish that as we were making progress, they were giving up some of their playing time, and it really didn't matter to them because it was all about a team. And the great part was we didn't have a one-man team. It was, Maggie Wanamaker, who's Jim's age, was a senior, and Kim Nichols. They were kind of our senior leaders, but we had great junior leaders and sophomore leaders. And everyone just had the same purpose. They wanted to win, and it didn't matter who was on the court. They were supporting each other, and this continued on during our whole high school career, where they could have really squashed our enthusiasm, as a freshman is gaining some of their playing time. But instead, they just embraced us. We were all part of a team. And really, our freshman year, we got beat by, in the district finals, by Carol Lammers in Miller City. I think Carol only had 52 points. I think I might have been guarding her part of the time. But they beat us, and we thought we had improved a lot. But we really didn't know we were going to be good until our sophomore year, when we beat an undefeated Archbold team who had been very successful under Shar Sharp. And all of a sudden we beat them, and it was like, wow, this team might be good. That was kind of our first aha moment.
Who says a college degree is the only path to a fulfilling career? At the Gherkin Companies, we offer rewarding livelihoods with or without a degree. Gherkin provides a generous benefits package, continuous training, top-notch equipment, and a culture that rewards effort. We're looking for rock-solid performers to help build and reinforce the region's infrastructure. Whether you have construction experience or are just starting your career, apply now at gherkincompanies.com/careers.
American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store off Route 24 on State Route 109, just south of Liberty Center, now has 88 unleaded fuel and is your one-stop shop for fuel, food, drinks, and much, much more, including locally raised meats and home-baked goods. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store is proud to support Black Swamp Football and is the host of the Black Swamp Football podcast, football show, and Saturday mornings Rise and Rewind. Stop in and see Glenn and Greg today and make American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store a part of your everyday routine.
Yeah.
Describe Coach Voll for us. What was it like playing for him?
Well, we were so excited because he was a great motivator. He had knowledge. He was willing to use his resources. He was kind of a lone ranger for a while, just coaching, and he would engage Dad and Kenny Burguy and Dave Alt. Any of his assistants would come down if Fran said, hey, I need some help. I'm working on the offense. We're working on the press. And they would come down and take one team, and he would take the other, because, back then they didn't have many assistants. And again, they treated us just like the boys program. Like, you know what, you got to bend your knees. You got to trap here. We did a full court press, and that was kind of a new thing at that time. And so we really worked on our press. We were going to have the same press as the boys, and that was probably our bread and butter. And so, to this day, we're all in a text thread, and, we're all dear friends. And it really started with our leadership with Coach Voll, because he believed in us.
Coach Voll, Jeanne mentioned the seniors being very unselfish as the freshmen were getting more playing time. Was there anything you had to do to kind of keep peace and harmony, or did it happen naturally?
I think it was important that we treated the seniors like seniors. And I think we did a good job of that. And Jeanne mentioned those people, Kim Nichols, Maggie Wanamaker, and some of we all knew that they were the leaders. We all knew that. And it gave them an opportunity to kind of do well. Not just on the court, but off the court, because they were part of something that was going to be pretty good. And I think that they embraced that. And that was a lot to do with each and every player. They just wanted to do well. And, And that's big. I don't know what you do if you don't have those kind of kids.
Well, obviously they listened well and learned their lessons, because that 4-year run, starting with Jeannie's sophomore year, you claim a state championship undefeated, 24-1. You talked about the one loss her junior year. Redo their senior year, another state championship undefeated. And then just for good measure, after she's gone away, you got rid of the dead weight, get rid of her. You just won another state championship. So
Well,
it's
I think that had a lot to do with where those kids that followed Jeannie and Deb and Sue and Court.
Sure.
They saw what it was all about.
Yeah.
And they stepped up and they got the most out of their talents without a doubt. And that was probably the most exciting year. Not that our years previous to that weren't, but this was a situation where let us see what we can do. How good can we be? Can we follow those footsteps that they left?
Yeah.
They never really left. They've never really left the program. It's still
sure, exactly.
With Jimmy, this still part of that scenario back home.
Sure. Well, you do the math on those 4 years, you're looking at 100 wins and 3 losses. Now that's kind of unheard of. I don't care where you're coaching at. That's a totally impressive, Coach.
I was looking at the Delphos St. John's history of girls and boys basketball today. And here's a fact. Fran was 208-17 as a coach. 93% win. 208-17. That's crazy.
Wow.
The toughest thing I ever had to do was when I left them.
Yeah.
But I
could probably name the 17 losses, probably.
Well, maybe they ran me out of town. I don't know. But when I went to Bowling Green, I had 3 sons. Education was becoming more and more prevalent, and they needed to find a place to land and for schooling, for sure, college. And for me to have left that community, that program, even with the kids that we had coming back, they were really good down the line. But it was a tough deal. But I fortunately was able to pick some things up at Bowling Green. We had success there.
Coach, I want you to go back. Your life and times and what took you to Delphos initially.
Well, I was coaching basketball at a school in Morrill County, Northmore High School, with a friend of mine. And he was the head coach. I was his assistant. I didn't think I knew enough about basketball. I thought, and I liked coaching. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach. I ended up being a business major in college, but that's what I really wanted to do. So I knew I had to get in a better situation so I could learn. And John Gunner was on the staff at St. John's. He was the speech and drama and TV coordinator for the high school. He called me one day and said, Bob Arnzen needs a coach. We need a coach. They also need a business teacher. Would you come over? So I did, and that I knew that was going to be that was huge. I just thought I saw too many good people, good coaches that just couldn't quite get over the hump and not have the success that they would have liked to have, or maybe we're no longer coaching. And I needed to find out if that's what I was going to do. I had to find out from the best, and the best was certainly one of the best programs, and the best coach was at Delphos St.
Yeah,
Coach, you weren't making a whole lot of money back then at Delphos St. John's, were you?
No.
Easy question. What about this? Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
I went home and my mother said, "Well, what's your salary going to be?" I said, "I have no idea, but I know I'm going to be with one of the best coaches in Ohio."
Yeah, that's priceless there. What about the one unity besides the last name Arnzen, Jeannie and Jim? You both were named your senior years first team All Ohio. So that's a unique thing to have a brother sister in their respective years graduate as being first team All Ohio honors. So that was really a neat accomplishment. You were Player of the Year, Jim, back in '76. Is that correct?
So yeah, '76. There was 3 classifications in A, AA,
Right.
and AAA, and I was named the AA Player of the Year that year. And I still people say stuff about that to this day. So it was that was a long time ago, though. Yeah.
It was a long time ago, but I do some investigation and some research. There was one name that popped out who was a fellow member of that All Ohio team who became very well known in the baseball circles from Cincinnati. You remember who that was?
Uh,
Cincinnati McNicholas player.
Were they in AA or what?
Yep. Yeah, your year on Division II, yeah, or AA.
Help me cheat on that answer.
Oh, how about Pat? Pat played for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Tabler.
Pat Tabler, you got
Tabler.
it.
There you go.
Hey, how about
Pat
that?
Ding, ding,
Tabler.
ding for Jeannie. Point.
Yes, Pat
Very
Tabler.
cool. Yeah.
Teamwork, Jeannie.
I only knew that because I had to help one day at St. Gertrude's with evaluations, and he was the other evaluator with me. And I happened to look him up one day, and I'm like, whoa.
So Jeannie, yeah, she lives in Cincinnati, so we know where she's at. And Jim, you're in Portsmouth, correct?
Yes, been down in Portsmouth for about 35 years.
Yeah.
Why'd you stay in Portsmouth, Jim?
I moved down to Portsmouth to be the head men's basketball coach at Shawnee State University. And then after that, I was athletic director. And that's where my family raised my family here. And about the last 15 years, I worked as a safety supervisor at used to be a uranium enrichment plant by Department of Energy, and they're tearing it down. So I still stay active. Probably 15 years after I coached at Shawnee, I spent about 8 years helping Portsmouth High School coach the boys team, and we had a good run of teams there too. So it was a lot of years in the gym, that's for sure.
Yeah. What about so when you left Delphos? We'll get to both of your stories leaving Delphos because you both played collegiately. You ended up you went to Dayton, but you ended up at Defiance. So
Right.
Talk about your Defiance years playing for Marv Holmberger.
I loved every minute. Played there for 3 years. Coach Holmberger, he was the best. He was a good guy. Had great teammates, a mixture of guys from that area, guys from out of the area. And my senior year, it's been 1980. Back in I think they're NAI again, went to NAI playoffs, and we won our district and got to play in the national tournament out in Kansas City. And back then they brought 32 teams out there, played in Kemper Arena, and they packed the place. And it was a great memory of the last year of playing ball. But like I said, it's a good bunch of guys. We stay in contact to this day. They're all getting old, but I'm not. They're all getting old, but yeah.
What made Marv Hohenberger special?
He was consistent. He coached hard. But when we weren't in practice, he knew about our families. He knew, we spent time with him, and we traveled in vans, so he'd hear all of our stories we didn't want him to hear. But he was consistent. He coached hard, and we knew it. But he just had a gift. He was no nonsense. I mean, I remember times in the locker room halftime just getting tore, and you got used to it, and he made his mark there. That definitely made his mark.
Before my time, but I heard there were some absolute slobber knockers that you guys had with Finley back in those days.
They were our big rivals. Coach Hohenberger, Coach Howdeshell. I don't even know if they ever liked each other. They acted like they did once they retired, but I'm not sure that was even true. But both gyms would be packed. The football players would all be at the game in the cheering sections, and they traveled each other's gym, and that wasn't always a pretty thing. But from day one, we knew we had beat Findlay, and they felt the same way back then. But it was so fun. We played. They were a big rival, but we played like Bluffton, and we played High Northern, Heidelberg, Tiff, and good travel games where people, students could travel and go there. Your parents could go there, and it was good small gyms, rowdy atmosphere. I really enjoyed it.
Well, they were packed houses because I remember going to a few of those Findlay Defiance games, and Defiance packed the gym anyway. I don't care who you were playing; it was a tough ticket.
Yeah,
It was fun.
I got pictures of like some old newspaper clippings, and in the background you see the gym is packed.
Oh,
and as a player, I always knew it was packed, but I guess I didn't realize just how packed that it was. And it's a shame. I think a lot of small colleges now, there's so many games on TV that people and the students just stay home and watch other things or stuff. But they made us feel like we were a big deal when we were playing there. It was great years.
Jim,
I was able to get up there a few years ago when they named the gym after Coach Holmberger.
Yeah,
Marv Holmberger Gymnasium, and a lot of the old players came back. But
well deserved.
Much respect.
Yeah, well deserved. What about some of the local guys that you played with? Because that's part of the pack in the gym, because all those fans from those schools would go see those local guys. So who were some of those local names?
Well, Joey Frank from Archbold. He when I was a senior, he came in as a freshman, and he was a point guard, and I was a point guard. I had to remind him he was brought in to be a backup point guard, and then take the position over. But he was there. He was a good local guys. We had guys from up in Toledo. Larry Pappenfuss was a really good player. Toledo Bowser. Brad Spitnail was with us. He was out of Continental. Brad Byhars was from Van Buren. We had Mark Meyer from Tenora. Mark Meyer from Tenora was our center the first year that I got there. Bobby Fett, who did a lot of coaching up in that area, he was on the team with me when I was there. Our manager, who had to keep Hoey away from us, was Steve Lambright, for Defiance High School grad. He did a lot of good things for us. But you're right, it was a lot of local kids. There was JV teams at the time, and so
was Larry Flynn on that team too? Was it Larry? Larry Flynn, was he your other guard with you?
Yeah, Larry Flynn from Lorraine Catholic. Okay. He was on the team, and he was an outstanding player on that team. Terry Futrell, who coached a lot of years as the head coach at Cedarville College. He was in the class of 1980 there, and he was our best player. He was a really good guy, really good player.
Wow. Jeanne, take us your post-high school career as you competed in collegiate years.
So, back then they really didn't do a big job of recruiting. Many schools didn't have full rides. And I remember like Bowling Green and Toledo offering me just partials. And then Northern Kentucky, after the state tournament, offered me a full ride. And that was a great experience. All my cousins lived in Northern Kentucky. So that was a lure for me. And I loved my experience there, the school, the basketball. But at the time, there were no dorms. So we only had one girls' athletic house and one guys. And socially, that wasn't really enough for me. I needed more because a lot of people on weekends would go home to their families, because there were no dorms. So I transferred to Bowling Green. Fran was not the coach at the time. So I played my last 2 years at Bowling Green. And so I felt like it was a win-win. I had, two really good experiences. I consider both kind of my alma mater.
Yeah. Well, then, Fran, when you got to Bowling Green, take us, we talked about it earlier, how difficult that decision was. But, once you got there, you didn't take you long to get it going. So tell us about how that all shaped up.
John Weiner told me, he said, you got to go get players, and that was a key ingredient. And it was a lot like building our St. John's team from the standpoint, we brought the young kids in that seemed to mash together from various places, cities, rural areas, whatever. And they kind of did a lot of the same things, and I was doing a lot of the same things. I called Bob every once in a while to get some help and some guidance about certain things, but he said, just coach them up. And, the way you've been doing it, the athletic director of Bowling Green said the same thing. However you're doing it at your high school level, you want to make sure you continue to do it here because you're doing something that must be right. And so, anyways, we just got right away some very good players, that came to us, and we got to the MAC tournament right away. And then after that year, the first year, just getting there, that was pretty good, but we wanted to do more, obviously. So we were able to win some MAC championships and get into the NCAA. In fact, we were the first university in the MAC that won an NCAA game. It would be Cincinnati at Bowling Green in front of a full house in good old Anderson Arena.
Oh my, Anderson Arena, baby! What a place!
Yeah, but that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Well, stay right there because you just mentioned Anderson Arena, and we've had all these guests on, and in the top three they always name is St. John Arena in Columbus, Anderson Arena, and then the Grand Canyon up here in Napoleon. Take us through some gyms that you played in that were your favorites, and Fran, that you coached in.
Well, obviously, I started at home at St. John's, the Bob
Arnzen,
and that's obviously where it started. It was fun in those days for me, seeing different places and so on. We had a great rivalry, as Jeanne mentioned, with Bath. Great rivalry with Archbold, and Holgate in those years, Dwayne Sheets, and right down the line there was certain teams that were pretty good and had good followings. So that makes the difference in the whole thing is what kind of following is there to fit in that gym. I think gyms are gyms, but when they put people in there that like at OU when we were coaching at BG, tough place to play, but a great facility. Miami, I saw some of that part of it that was really good. But the bottom line was how many fans, what can they do to help their home team, and so on and so forth. And the good teams seem to have that. The other teams maybe not so good. So you really didn't pay much attention.
And Fran, I remember judging gyms when I was in high school according to, we were so excited. I think one year we got to play in Crestview's old gym.
Right.
And it was so small, and we were a pressing team, which really made it hard for the other team. It was a great advantage. You're like, oh, this floor is small. This is going to be great because they have nowhere to go with this.
Jeanne, don't you remember we were in the tournament and they had us scheduled to play at where was it?
I thought Crestview. I don't know why.
Small gym. It was a small gym.
Yes.
Maybe I don't know which one it was. It was maybe in Paulding County. I can't remember. But I told the Northwest District Board people that place is not going to hold our game with Delphos Jefferson. And they ended up moving it to Van Wert. That was unheard of, to move a girls' game from one site to another. I don't think that's probably ever happened, and maybe it never has happened again.
And I think we all had kind of favorite gyms. Like Bowling Green was such a great spot because that meant you were in the regional. Of course,
Yep.
St. John Arena was so special because you're at state. Ohio Northern was maybe not famous for Jim Arnzen, but I thought Ohio Northern was a great spot. So, and then of course Elida, I think, is very special for all of us. That always seemed to be the district finals or Van Wert. Those were the two, and getting out of the district, boys or girls, was a big feat. Often whoever got out of that district went to state.
Jim, what's some memories of gyms that you love to play in?
Well, the gym that they still play in that was special back then already was the Salina Fieldhouse.
Ooh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have any idea how old that was, but they still played ball there, and it was a special look. But probably the neatest thing we had was our the rivalry we had with Lima Central Catholic. We would play twice a year on Sunday. Their home gym was the old Lima Senior Gym, and people would be there an hour before the JV game started to get in and get a seat. And then we played them in on Sunday at St. John's. It was and just some great games, and just the hype to get there. I can remember some of the games fell on like Super Bowl Sunday, and it might be right in the heart of the Super Bowl, but people would come to the game and to be a standing room only sellout. And then in the 70s, there was 4 or 5 times when both teams met in the tournament. So it'd be a third time. And I think Vince Koza, one of the TV guys from the Lima Sports, named it the Holy War. And so that was what the rivalry was called. And I still hear him use that word once in a while. Today, that was pretty special place.
Well, it's amazing of all the gyms that I go around Northwest Ohio, and I've been in plenty of them. I've never seen a game at the Vatican. Never seen a game. That's hard, and I'm embarrassed to say that. But
yeah.
Dave, it's time this year.
Oh,
you have time. You have time. It has to happen.
Well, Aaron told me this year, come down now, because obviously with Cam and the Cam show and the Blue Jay show, it had been really good, but they're done playing at home now. So I missed that opportunity. So.
No, they play this Friday night, which my husband and I were kind of addicted. We go about every other game from Cincinnati, and then they will host the first round game.
That's right. I forgot, but I got a grandson playing on Friday night, so I got to be grandpa on Friday night. But
Jim, what could you hold Cam to?
I watch him play, and I try to think of who compared to him that was a Blue Jay, which nobody can. But the closest guy that I can think of that played like him would have been Jack Kill, who graduated from St. John's in 1970. He was very aggressive on offense and defense, could get a shot off whenever he wanted to. But I don't know how I'd guard Cam. Obviously no one been able to figure out how to guard him. And what I liked about him most, and I told his dad this summer when I saw him, is when I watched a kid play, I like, how would it be to be his teammate? And I think it'd be terrific to be his teammate. He gets all the honor and all the glory, but his teammates, he makes them play good too. So that's a special gift he's got. He can play aggressive defense without fouling. A lot of good players have to play soft defense so they stay in the game. But man, I never get tired of watching him play. Never.
The Kill you mentioned, is that relation to Frank?
Frank, well, they're all related, but that's not a first or second cousin.
Okay, a little further down. Okay,
yeah, of that there's a bunch of Kills there, and Frank's dad Roger played for my dad. His uncle Glenn played for Dad. If you look through the list of names, there's Kills all over the place, and Klaus's and Elwers and Pullmans, and it's crazy. The same names that have been active since the 40s and 50s, still in the bloodlines are big.
So we know Cam will be going on to Furman once he leaves Delphos. What other D1 guys have come out of Delphos that you can kind of refresh our memories?
There's in the late 50s, 1954, a guy went to Xavier, Red Elwer, who was a good player in their state runner-up team in 54. Then 57, 58, Dan Mueller went to University of Dayton, played on a couple NIT teams. At the Division I, then Jack Kill went to Dayton, stayed there a year or two. But Gene Klaus, who coached for a long time, he played the mid-60s. He went on as the captain of Dayton, and in his senior year, they got beat in the NCAA finals by UCLA. So he's probably had the most noted Division I career. When I was a senior, along with myself, going to Dayton, Tim Pullman was my teammate and classmate. He stayed at Dayton for 4 years. Big Al Quartercracks went to Ohio State for a year or two, then ended up at a Division I school down south. I forget where.
Central Florida.
Is that where he went?
Mhm.
He did well, but there hasn't been a whole lot. And this has been a long gap. And now Cam's there, and I really have to think he'll do well. I just think, I think he's got what it takes.
So here's
Coach,
a little.
I don't know that you could stump Jeannie with some of these history questions.
I'm not trying.
She's on her game, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's done her research.
So a couple things that's kind of interesting. So Dick Huntingford, besides what Jim said, Dick Huntingford was 1950 Player of the Year. Again, I didn't realize that until I did a little research today. And then you had the Carter twins. You had BZ.
Time out.
Yes.
I was going to bring the Carter twins up because that's my almost first memory of going to college basketball games. My brother and I, being twins, we never missed the Carters at Finley. I was Jerry, he was Jim. I wore 22 because Jerry Carter had 22 and he wore 20. So yeah, the Carters were huge in my growing up.
And then they had, BZ Grodehouse, who coached the girls for many years. God rest his soul. He was in my era. He and Chuck Spielis were the players that I really thought were incredible. But I asked BZ a couple years ago when Cam was a sophomore. I said, BZ, how good is Cam? He said, hands down, the best ever we've had. Wow. And I thought, because I thought, okay, maybe I'm being biased. I think he's really good, but let's compare him to like when we were a little bigger school playing all the Division Ones. He goes, he's something special. And then Barney Altman was a really great player. And ironically, his grandson, I know we have all Elwers on the team, but his grandson is Jackson Weaker. I learned that this season. He is in the starting lineup for the team, and then, Gip Pullman. So Gip Pullman and Barney were a big part of the Blue Jay success. Barney and Gip, Jim, did they coach 39, 40 years with Dad?
I'd say that's about right.
Wow.
And Fran, you might know that as junior high coaches, they just wanted to be part of the program. And Dad always gave a lot of credit to that, you had Barney Altman, Gip Pullman, Dave Alt, these people stayed with him for, over 20 years. So, and it continued on.
Well, that's, when you have that kind of leadership at the younger ages, they're getting things done. And as the head coach wants them to get done, and no wonder they're ready to jump into the higher level. Coach Voll, what about any girls besides Jeannie that might have gone on to play collegiately at D1 level?
Well, maybe one of the first people to ever get a full ride scholarship to Toledo was Laura Grodehouse. Okay. In Jeannie's class. Isn't that right, Jeannie? I think.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think she was maybe the first female to be able to do that. And of course, Deb Elwer was a great player at Northern Kentucky, and Sue Young Peter was at Dayton. And those were some of the players that came along and went on. Jeannie, you might remember a few more. They don't come to my mind.
Yeah, and then
what percentage?
Go ahead. Tracy Gorman.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
Tracy Gorman ended up going to Bowling Green. Yeah. Marianne Steeman was, where'd she? I forget where she ended up going.
She went to Indiana.
Mm. So, and then we had a lot of girls play Division III. A lot of them continued on.
Kelly Clark and some of those.
Yeah.
People.
What percentage of the student body would you say, when you three were involved at St. John's, were from the city of Delphos, Ohio?
I'm thinking all of them, but the only ones that maybe weren't were from nearby Landeck, which Landeck had a strong, they had a Catholic church there, a strong Catholic community, and they would get bussed in, but it wasn't like a lot of the schools are now. It was like the guys I played ball with, there were 7 of us my senior year, and all 7 of us went 12 years together to school. And that was just kind of how, I don't know how it is now, but back then it was, the same guys you played Little League baseball with, and everybody's parents knew each other, and it was
I would say 90 now, even probably 99%. There might be a 1% that might come from Van Wert, Van Wert has a Van Wert St. Mary's. Like this year, I think Tyson McLean came maybe as a 7th grader, maybe before that. But otherwise, no, I would say almost 99%.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Generations. And, you know,
Yep.
a lot of times the Catholic schools get all their recruiting. That's why they're good. And I remember when Dad was coaching, people would sit behind me. Oh, they recruit. I'm like, and Dad says, you know, I must be a bad recruiter then, because a lot of years I need a big man, and I should be going after some big man. I got all guards because I'm not a very good recruiter.
That's funny.
That's awesome. That's great.
I'm curious. I know you were in the Western Buckeye League during your days, but the MAC conference, now that what Delphos is in, has had all this success. That region, the Delphos area. Why is that from your perspective for all three of you?
I really believe back when newspapers were printed every day, my oldest sister Elaine would laugh at me. If we get him for the holidays, like if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, she'd get the Lyman News and she would read 3 or 4 names from a box score. And I would say St. Henry or, yeah, or one of the schools there just by the names that were in there. And she would laugh like, how do you know that? I said, that's how it is. And like I said, I never played in the MAC, but I did a lot of recruiting from them schools and stuff. And I think it's work ethic, bloodlines. They're big, strong kids. I like to think for the most part, the parents still let the coaches coach, which is a rarity there. And they just have, it's excellence. It's not, and they play all the sports. People down here in Portsmouth who never been up that way, they'll know about the MAC, and they'll, particularly with football, they'll compare. They'll know what round of the playoffs they might have to play a MAC team if they advance, and they pretty much know that's the end. So it just it's amazing how in all the sports, man, they just keep it going, and it's there's none better, that's for sure.
And I think there's a lot of multiple sports players, like Jim alluded to. Like we live in Cincinnati now, and just even like if you go to a Delphos St. John's game, or happen to go at St. Henry to a St. Henry game, the little kids in the stands from age 2 to grade school. St. John's has a whole section right under the basket. It's all kids from K to 6. If I go to a Madeira game where I live, there might be 4 K to 6 kids. So the parents are bringing these kids to the game. And if this is what you're doing on a Friday and Saturday night, then you want to be that person. And if you want to be that person, then you're going to practice. That's kind of my take on it.
We were in the Western Buckeye League, and that was a great league, still is. We were becoming a little bit more of a smaller school. When we went in it, we were pretty good size. I think we were somewhere around 700 kids in the top 4 grades in those years. But you could forecast it was going to become different. So that's when everybody got their heads together, certainly including Bob and myself as an athletic director and our principal, George Adams, in those days, and decided, maybe we needed to look around, whatever. And, some people would say, well, you're really good. Things are really going to fall off, because you're going, in a different league, smaller school league, whatever. But it didn't take them long to figure out that was a pretty good league. The Western Buckeye League, that's not to take anything away from, because they're very, very good and have been, but the MAC speaks for itself.
I've got one other thing I want to bring in before we wrap this up, and that's going back to Dad and Coach Arnzen's legacy when it comes to the Coaches Association. He was one of the main guys from the original days, and what really has become an honor is each year at the state tournament, Jeannie, you and Teddy show up and you give out the Bob Arnzen Longevity Award. Talk about that and what that means.
Well, we're so honored to be able to continue to distribute that. And when Dad was not about awards. Like, he never gave out the most valuable player. He gave out free throw champion. Truly, that's what he never gave. Best defense. He said, we're about team, and we're not giving single awards. Yes, you might get Western Buckeye Player of the Year. You might get first team All State, and you got those awards, but he was never going to give an award. And so when the Coaches Association asked, hey, we want to do some award, that was the one that he said he would do, but only if junior high coaches were also part of it. Your wins in junior high mattered, because he said, I want my junior high coaches, all the time they put in, to be acknowledged, because he said, I think that's the success of many programs is people who stay in the program for a long time. So this Bob Arnzen Longevity Award meant something to him, because it was about honoring other coaches who stayed out of school for 20 years or longer. So I'm really proud of, it's really unheard of that people stay out of school that long.
Yeah, it's really a neat thing, the fact that got the origin of that, and recognizing your dad, who spent 43 years at Delphos.
43, yeah.
Okay, so he just had an awesome run, and that name, or that award in his name, speaks a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Did you ever coach against Coach Arnzen?
Never did, thankfully. Never did.
Huh, I was curious.
I tell you what, he is noted for among the coaching fraternity. He was a great letter writer. He would, if something happened that good, he would send you a little note. Hey, congratulations on this milestone of coaching, blah, blah, blah. Coach Bob Arnzen. I'm going, well, I got to save this. And then I remember when I retired, he goes, this is terrible. We're losing one too young. You shouldn't be getting out. You kind of chastised me a little bit, but he congratulated me on a good run. But nonetheless, I still have those notes from Dad. Cool. Those are special memories.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know him, but everybody that I know that knew him, just first class. Yeah. They speak so highly of the man, and
and he passed it down, didn't he?
Oh yeah, outstanding.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for taking the time to do this. We appreciate it. It was an absolute privilege to get to chat with you all.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Great job, guys.
Stay tuned for our teams of the week.
Thanks.
Hard-working individuals have been the heart of the Gherkin companies for generations. Together we construct the highways and infrastructure that strengthen our communities. Gherkin is seeking rock-solid performers. We offer generous benefits, continuous training, top-notch equipment, and a culture that rewards effort. Want to be part of something big, steady, and stable with room to grow? Whether you're experienced or just starting your career, we encourage you to apply at gherkincompanies.com/careers.
Welcome back to the Black Swamp Basketball Podcast, presented by the Gherkin Companies. Thank you to the Gherkin Companies for being the title sponsor of our basketball podcast again this season. We're going to hand out our teams of the week again here this week. Dave Kraus, Tori Strock, and I am Lynn Grohl. I got one recommendation for this week on the.
Well, before you jump into that.
Oh, you got something for me.
I think the Arnzens and Coach Voll, that was just a fun conversation to learn more about the Blue Jay program and their place in it, because they're like you mentioned earlier, they're royalty, all three of them.
My goodness, yes, yeah. Like I said, I never knew Coach Arnzen, but people that did know him, oh my goodness, speak so highly of him in the Vatican there, and boy, he's kind of built that place.
Special man for sure.
Yeah.
The one word that stands out to me talking to those three, just humility.
Yeah.
I mean the illustrious careers that they were all part of in that, and just so humble and cordial, first class.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and Coach Arnzen not playing basketball kind of went the Wayno path.
Yeah, exactly. Yep,
and to have that much success, boy, incredible trio from Delphos there.
Well, and just what you just said about humility. If he walked in here right now today, Coach Arnzen, you would say, no, there's no way he's that one of the winningest coach ever. He's unassuming and it looks like a professor more than anything. But boy, could he coach him.
Yeah, well, he brought up his daughter and son very well, and Fran coaching with him, boy. Fantastic group.
And they're sounds like they're enjoying the current Blue Jays too.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Boy.
they are.
Why
who wouldn't?
Why wouldn't you be? Right?
I think there are a lot of people outside of Delphos enjoying what the Jays are
absolutely.
doing these days.
Yeah.
We'll see what they can do here.
Okay, let's go to your recommendation. Let's hear it.
Just on the boys' side, St. John's Jesuit winning the CHSL championship under Mike Schoen.
Okay, didn't
First
know
time
that.
from
I'm sorry,
Toledo.
I missed that
First
one.
time from a team from Toledo has done that in the short stint that they went up to the Detroit Catholic League and,
Well, that is
played
impressive.
up there.
Very impressive. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't have them
That
on
one
my
slipped
list.
by you?
It
Oh.
did. I did not realize that.
Now I know the Johnnies they've had a nice year, maybe wanted a few more wins, but winning that league's pretty darn impressive.
Well, that is really impressive. So let's just stay there. I was going to mention a couple teams that Brayton last week talked about a lot, and he talked about how the Arlington team is having a special year, and they are. They currently 18-3, one more game to play, but obviously they were number one in their RPI rating in their bracket, and they've won their last 14 games, and they've beat Spencerville, they beat Crestview, they've beaten some really good teams along the way as they've got that streak going. The other team I mentioned that he talked about a lot was Lima Senior, who's had an unbelievable season in terms of what they're doing as well. And the Arnzens talked about the Holy War. They claimed they beat the Lima Cup. Now they beat LCC here last weekend for the Lima Cup. I know that. So I was going to mention those two, but I tell you what, I feel bad. I didn't realize that they won that league, and that is prestigious, and that is a doing. So I'm totally okay with St. John's. Your recommendations is
You
right
like
on.
that?
Absolutely.
Mike Schoen and crew.
Mike's a good guy and is a good coach
Yeah.
and done a great job following some heavy footsteps.
Eddie Heinchel, my goodness.
That's for sure.
Can we get Eddie on the show?
We could. Why wouldn't we?
I'm just asking. I know we've talked.
He's on our list. Yeah,
Okay.
he's on,
He's
our
on the
list.
list. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to track some of these guys down. It's cold in Ohio, even though it's gorgeous today. Some of these guys take off and find warmth. Which why wouldn't you do that either? So
Well, we can get him on a
we can
Zoom call.
I'll work on Eddie, and I think he'd be a good one to talk about the all-time best St. John players of all time.
Ooh, good luck with that.
Yeah.
My goodness, he's had some good ones.
He'd hurt some feelings most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the girls' side, let's again a couple teams that to me stand out. Both 20-2 teams. We mentioned both of them all year long. Paulding at 20-2 won the GMC a week ago, and then Miller City 20-2. And what's Miller City's done that's really impressive? They've lost two games, both at home. They've won every road game. And they've gone on the road all season long and have not lost a game. They were the number one seeded team on the girls' side in their particular bracket. I could go either way. I mean, I'm leaning Miller City for this reason. I think that's impressive in what they've done, and they didn't win the PCL because Grove went undefeated, and that's their loss, obviously. But we've had a pattern going along on the girls' side. We've had initials: OG, St. Henry, SH, LB, PH, CG, Columbus Grove. I think Miller City fits that pattern really well.
I'm not gonna figure into this decision
and they're deserving.
because after football season, the Paulding folks do not like me.
Oh well, I'm not.
I picked against them a couple times against Fairview, and they won both those games. So I don't want any fingerprints on this decision.
I'm not ripping on Paulding. I love Matt and what he's done.
Yeah, they're having a great year.
They've had a great year. What's really important about Matt and his team, they have one of the toughest sectional tournament games than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the rankings in the RPI came out, they chose to stay away from the number one seed, so they went to the other bracket, and they'll start at Delta. Here's a league champion at Paulding at Delta, who was a league runner-up. There's no better game in Northwest Ohio come Saturday afternoon at Delta.
Yeah.
So that's an impressive game. And the other game is same mentality on the boys' side. No better game than Spencerville at LCC. You talk about a first round game, a first sectional final game.
Be a regional game.
It very well could have been, but didn't happen with how they ranked everybody. So, those things happen sometimes yet, even with this new and improved setup. But I'd go with Miller City only because I think that what they've done over the course of the season has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, I like that too.
Okay.
So congratulations to Miller City on the girls' side and Toledo St. John's on the boys' side this week.
Sounds good.
Yeah. That'll wrap up this week's show. And
you didn't want my input on either of those?
You didn't want to contribute, so we just flushed
Well,
you.
you skipped me. You didn't give me an opportunity.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm good with both.
Okay.
Well, we have some food courtesy of Coach Krause waiting on us.
Well, we'll see how Coach Strock and his taste buds are going to like
My
him.
palate.
I don't know.
That's pretty discriminating, my palate.
Are you going to add anything to this?
No.
Even bread?
Bread, maybe.
No mustard?
No, gosh, no. Lynn, don't do this again.
The origin of this whole conversation and why this happened is your fault, Lynn.
My fault.
For some unknown reason, last week I'm driving down to Dayton, and all of a sudden my wife says, "This Lynn Grohl, he just texted you about whatever," and she checks the text.
We better be careful what we send, old coach.
She sends the text, and because I was driving. You don't pick your phone up when you're driving, right? And
there's some ketchup.
It was ripping on me for my poor chili that you ripped.
I wasn't ripping on.
Some weak chili. I heard was part of the comment.
I didn't say it was weak. I just said son Mark had some better options. For smoked food.
And when you showed your brisket picture, I was impressed. Now, I don't know if it came off your grill or you took a picture off somebody else's Instagram or something, but that was impressive looking.
That was my brisket, Dave.
Okay, that was Tori's, actually.
That was really nice looking.
Thanks,
How
buddy.
come we aren't having that?
Well, I didn't have time.
Okay.
You get me on a non-school day.
Gotcha.
It's on.
Okay.
Well, we've been waiting. We've been waiting.
It's got to be it's got to be a Saturday.
Oh. There's a lot of Saturdays in the year.
52 of them.
Well, what's on the menu tonight, Coach?
We have smoked bologna sandwiches. If you get in a Waldo, down to GNR Bar down in Waldo, Ohio, that's what it's patterned after.
First thing I thought when I saw the picture.
I've never did smoked bologna. I've had it. I love it.
Yeah.
But I've never did it myself, so I'm looking
pretty
forward.
Easy. It's idiot proof, so I can do it. You can do it.
See that picture? Did you see how he scored it?
Yeah, and he scored it.
It's perfect.
I saw that.
It's perfect.
I'm pretty impressed.
Measured it.
I'm pretty impressed. But I'm worried if I don't get in there and get in there before you, I may not get any at all. Because if you've seen Tori Strock eat.
Well, there's 8 nice chunky pieces, so I think.
Well, that'll be 6 for him and 1 for each of us.
And got to feed Glenn, so.
And Glenn.
Krause, when I first came aboard Black Swamp 4 years ago, Lynn had me out to his house, and we were testing some equipment and things, and he smoked some chicken and some ribs. And, I mean, I couldn't stop eating. I think I ate an entire chicken and probably 2 racks of ribs and all those bones, and poor Lynn was just getting my scraps.
I was picking through the scraps trying to find a sliver of meat left.
But it was good. He did a good job.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you again next Wednesday.